Hey traders, what's up? Jamie Saettele here. It is Jan 12, 2022, and welcome to this most important FX Power Hour here with me, Jamie Saettele. Again, this is Jamie Saettele with Scandinavian Capital Markets and SB Trade Desk, and we should have the charts up and shared, so let's begin. All right, so we've got some really important charts to focus on here. Early in the year, we are finally getting, remember we came into the year pretty bearish, the dollar, and those, the reasons being were pretty clear from a chart perspective. We had come into massive levels. For example, this US dollar index, right? This is the FXCM Dow Jones Dollar Index, which is a quarter each of Euro, Pound, Yen, and Aussie. We had retraced 50% and put in some nice fat candles up here, towards the end of 2021. And it was really from a sentiment, we talked about this last week, but really from a sentiment perspective, it was, kind of the opposite really of going into last year. Remember last year, you had everybody calling for the dollar to continue lower, just for the simple fact that it had been going lower for, since March 2020. And that's what people do for the most part, right? They extrapolate linearly, and we reversed, right? That's just how it works. So this year, the opposite. I wouldn't say the sentiment was as extreme as it was last year. But, we were getting hints and signs that the consensus call was indeed for a higher dollar, and now we are starting to roll over. So now really is the big test. Again, this is the US dollar index, very well-defined trend line from May, okay? And we are ticks away from that trend line now. So hopefully over the next couple of days, we will know or have a better idea, have a strong idea whether or not this trend is lower for real, because again, this is the big test, right? Trend line, along with, of course, that high there from late September, and we've also got the 38.2 retrace of that entire drop from March 2020. All right, so we should, again, have an idea of whether or not this thing is lower. All right, DXY, very similar in the sense that we are testing that line pretty much right now, right? Again, this is going to be mostly Euro. This is the chart really that kind of had us thinking lower going into this year just because of the underside of that trend line back to 2011, right? Remember, that line was kind of important back in November 2020. We nailed it like to the tick in November 2021, did nothing essentially until the last couple of days, and we have now finally started to break down. So again, same thing here. That is, if we break lower, look lower. And actually kind of, here's a little trick on where to look towards if we do break down. So if we throw the channel on here, right, and we put an extension of the channel. So this line here is equidistant, or sorry, is the width of the channel, right? Just extend it out. So that's where you would be looking towards if indeed we did break lower. And you can see how it would intersect quite nicely with that high here from March of 2021. There's also that support back here from October 2021. So if we do break lower, from a trading perspective, you're going to be looking towards that level near 93.40, 93.50. And of course, the underside of this here line would become your proposed resistance level if we tag it. Okay. All right. Let's move on to Euro. I'm going to show you a couple things here as well. Again, the longer term chart, which in past webinars we focused exclusively on, but now we do have some stuff to work on from the shorter term perspective. So here's that trend line for May. Again, it is about 1460. Interesting in that it's a little higher than the DXY line is on the downside. What I want to do though, so this is a little strategy action here, a little some tactics to zoom in on the short-term charts as we're getting this breakout. This is a breakout for real, right? Broke above that clean 1380 level. Irrespective of whether we go to 1460 first or not, 1380 is going to be your support now. And if this breakout is the real deal, we should be holding that. Okay. So I've got a channel thrown on here. Again, along with just the obvious 1380 horizontal level. And if you pull back, that should be support now. That's where you would want to be looking for the thing to hold so that you can take it higher. And if we're going to break out to the upside, you know, just for argument's sake, where was that October high up here? That was equivalent to the October low on DXY. That's going to be like 117. So that's generally where we would be thinking. And that actually makes sense too. If we were to put an extension on this channel and break out through the top, you'd be looking towards the 117 level. Okay, so bottom line, 1460s is important. We haven't broken it yet. You got to break that in order to, you know, really be a Euro bull from a price perspective. But 1380s, if we are heading higher for real, should hold. And 117 would be kind of your bigger, more important target. All right. Okay, let's go to British pound now. Here's the deal. I'm bearish dollars. Made that pretty clear over the last number of months and whatnot, right? But got to pay attention to the chart. So pound dollar is one that's pretty interesting to me from possibly a fading per, you know, if the dollar is going to get a bit of a bounce, and again, that's if the dollar is going to get a bit of a bounce from the level that we're at now or approaching, again, those trend lines. Cable would be a place where you might see some, you know, some weakness, some dollar strength. So a couple reasons. One, VWAP from the high from 2021 is right here. You do have this high from November. You do have a very short-term fork, okay, which we're pressing that upper parallel now. And if I zoom out to a daily chart, by the way, 200-day average is a little higher, so 37.30. I just tweeted, in fact, before this webinar that cable has broken out, right? This breakout's for real. However, I think, you know, things are a little on the chart, at least, or a little sticky, if you will, up to about 137.30, which again is that 200-day average. Okay. We've also got I don't have it on here, but 50% retrace, I think, is 37.07. So bottom line, like, we're in the vicinity where you could see some back and fill or maybe a pullback or something like that in British pounds, even if, you know, the move is legitimately higher, right? Which, based on the fact that we've broken through this channel, you do have to look higher, right? Again, I would be looking for the top side of this former trend line, former trend channel, former resistance to provide support. And the fact that it's so well defined, this channel, right? Remember, we bottomed on the channel in December, you know, some, what, 500, 600 pips ago. But again, if we put a channel extension up here, eventually you're looking at this extension, this line is all the way up. Really, it's going to be up near 140, 141 at some point, right? So there is, you know, remains significant upside potential for cable, which appears to be leading the way for dollar weakness as it's already broken out of its level, right? I'm just saying, be aware of potential for, you know, a pullback from here up to like 37.30 or so. All right. That's all. Okay. Let's move on to dollar yen. All right. Dollar yen. We covered this last week. And remember, we talked about the square root levels. if you recall, we looked at, remember the square root level little lesson that we did last week where we talked about, we compared to euro last year, one square root progression from the year open, 115.10, we got 116.17, that was the daily close, and I will go out on a limb and say that the high for the year might be in place for dollar yen on the first trading or second trading day of the year. Not a crazy thing to say based on just the square root progression setup that we talked about last week. So yeah, that's that. Now, how do you trade this, right? So one, that former high at, what is that, 1550? That's resistance now. It's basically today's high, so you might not even, you might not be getting back to that level anyway. But let's go to a short-term chart here. All right, you see this channel here? We broke above it and failed, a little false breakout action. I would be looking at that basically as resistance now, which is going to be 15, call it 15, 15, 15, 20. And that's where I'd be looking to short if you're not already short. Okay. Downside price surfer is asking about dollar CAD. We will get there, my friend. Downside focus initially is going to be 1250 or so. Trend line in these lows back here from November. Okay. Let's see. Hold on here. Yes. All right. Okay. All right. So there's dollar yen. All right. Moving on. Aussie. Aussie is a beaut. Remember, longer term charts, we came into, that 69.90, held it from November 2020, and we are indeed headed higher. I wrote last night, one reason to be so bullish here is that VWAP from the March 2020 low, right? After dropping below, kind of a false break, we held it. What you're looking at here is a very short-term shift fork, not a regular fork, and not a channel, a shift fork, okay? So the test here is going to be like 73.20 on the upside for Aussie dollar, but euro is probably something I like a little bit better, frankly, just based on the setup and the possibility of a channel break above 1460. That along with DXY, of course. However, Aussie is certainly constructive. Also, because of, I'm not sure if we looked at this last week or not, but also constructive due to COT here. This is the Commitments of Traders report, and I'm just looking at commercials. Again, that's the big money, right? They're the hedgers, and they tend to be very long towards price lows and very short towards price highs. Well, right now they're close to the longest they've been ever. So again, that would, that alone is, a reason to think higher in Aussie. All right, Kiwi dollar. So the big level for Kiwi remains, and I will go to a daily chart here, remains that, what is that, 68.60 level right here, right? Remember, we retraced 38.2% of the move from the March 2020 low. We're now back above VWAP from that March 2020 low. Channel perfectly, right? Absolutely a perfect channel. And 68.60 is that low, and we established resistance there in December, and also very beginning of this year, we traded off from it. It's also this line here from the December 2019 high and September 2020 highs, which was support back in August 2021. So you get above that, and it's jailbreak, and we're ripping higher, probably towards 71 at some point. So again, Pay attention to that 68.60. If I've got a couple questions here from Stephanie, and I will get to them in a second. But if you want to look at maybe some shorter term stuff here, which, again, I've got a good feeling that we are breaking out in the dollar, or breaking down in the dollar, I should say, breaking out in currencies against the dollar. Here is a fork, okay? This is a bullish fork, and again, we don't know what's going to happen next. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. However, this offers trading's about establishing points of reference from which to manage risk, right? Can't do it blindly. You need a map. That's what the chart's for, okay? If indeed we trade lower from here or sideways from here in Kiwi, okay? I say that because we've tagged this median line and we've stalled for the last hour or so. That doesn't mean a whole lot. However, it could mean a lot if we start to pull back and fill and whatnot. Then you would watch for this line here. This is the 25 line halfway between the center line and the lower parallel. You would watch that line for support, especially because it was prior resistance, okay? If we break above this line, so I'll do a little drawing here for you. Let's say we do something like this, right? Then you look for support here and take it higher, okay? Let's say that we break above that line. It'd be something like this, okay? And then you pull back, and then this would be the primo setup. This would be the best setup you could have out of these options here, because you're at this point, you're incorporating not just the center line, but you're also incorporating that 68.60, right? Which we talked about just a couple minutes ago. So, those are the two kind of scenarios in my mind, if you will. And this latter one would be the, the big A+ setup that you would maybe put more size on, right? Because that's a confidence setup. So that's what I'm looking for in Kiwi here at these levels. All right, dollar CAD, which we did have a question on. I wrote about dollar CAD last night. I was not too happy with myself. Came into the year pretty bearish dollar CAD based on a long-term parallel. And what did I do? I didn't do anything. I did nothing about it. I screwed it up. That's okay. Let's move on. All right, so dollar CAD is coming into the 200-day average. But more important to me is this trend line that goes back to that, what was that, the June low, an October low. And you can see here that's going to intersect with a parallel from this fork, okay? That's going to be like 24.60 or so. So that's a level to pay attention to. Now, this is a great example. I'm going to put, let's look at an hourly chart. This is really show you kind of the details of median line trading. So, okay, for one, you see how we bounced from the median line first. Okay, great. Everything over here is kind of a mess. We did hit VWAP from the high. It was great. I don't know what the hell I was doing. It was 2 in the morning, so I was probably sleeping. Yesterday's high, or 2 days ago's high, excuse me, was right at this 25 line. When you come from the 25 line, your natural, this is the concept of symmetry in median lines. You're naturally looking for a move to the 75 line, which is equidistant from median line to 25 line. That intersects the trend line here at 24.50, 24.60. That's where you're looking, okay? Now, also, I want to bring in another concept here, median line acceleration. Do you see how what happened just today, okay? This was during Europe today. We broke lower, below the median line, bounced, if you can see this. I'll zoom in on a little bit. And guess where we reversed? Resistance right at the center line. This is a way that you can put on trades with very, very tight stops. Okay, you'd be amazed at how often you get these tags on center lines and whatnot and go right off of it. Okay, so for me, there's two things to watch here for dollar CAD. One, remember that the dollar, US dollar, as well as DXY, I think CAD's like maybe like 10 or 11% of DXY, something like that. But remember that both of these dollar indices are at or very, very close to support. Okay. So a bounce in dollar CAD would not be a crazy thought. Okay. Now, frankly, I don't think that it happens until 24.50.60. Okay. That's neither here nor there. I'm not trying to buy it here. Maybe down here if you get a reversal signal for a scalp, but that would be it. What I'm saying is watch the center line here for resistance at about 25.60, 25.70. However, the bigger, better setup for me would be a retest of this neckline, which is right here, right? This is a head and shoulders, right? Actually, I did dream about this last night for some reason. That's weird. Shoulder, head, shoulder, neckline, right? Tested it, broke it. If we do come back and test it at some point, it would also be testing the underside of this VWAP line right here, okay, which was VWAP from the low in October. That was support. We broke it, former support, look for it to become resistance. I say this all the time, but that's true not just on a a chart level basis, but it's also true for things like moving averages and VWAP and trend lines and pitchforks and all that good stuff. So again, that would be the primo setup, in my opinion, is if you got a bounce and a retest back to 26.30.40, which, by the way, is also the year open at 26.38. And then you'd be looking to lay on a short there for the retest of the head and shoulders neckline. Okay. Bigger downside level for dollar CAD is basically just the October low at 22.88. And that's also the head and shoulders target, by the way. So if I do this here, measure it out, you can see head and shoulders target right there, 22.70. Okay. Okay. Let's look at dollar NOK. Actually, is interesting. Looking at the petro currencies is always interesting together, especially given what's going on with oil. We're actually getting very close to a very key level in dollar NOK. 618 retrace of this rally, lower parallel of this fork, and VWAP from the low back in April of 2021. The entire 2021 low is all right here, 863 to 866. Okay. So pay attention to dollar knockdown here. My natural inclination right now is to say that it would give you clues on trading dollar CAD, but I hate saying stuff like that. One of my goals for 2022, if you will, is to get out of that mindset or that thinking, right? And that I'm looking at one currency pair to give me thoughts on another currency pair. Why don't I just look at that currency pair and trade that one instead? So yeah, they call that backdooring it, and you don't want to do that. I think it does more harm than good. Okay, we had questions from Stephanie on, do you think Ethereum can take another stab at 5K? We'll look at Ethereum right now. And she says, when will the Cardinals win the World Series again? I think 2022 is the year. Mahai says, well done, Jamie, following you since DailyFX in 2011. Thank you, Mahai. I appreciate the kind words. Okay, moving on to Stephanie talking about Ethereum and Bitcoin. All right. So last week we noted a big level around 3,000 for Bitcoin. And the reason that was a level was because it was VWAP from the high in May 2021. And on the way down, that was resistance. And then it was support. And guess what? It's been support again. So my thinking is that we head back towards a test of this well-defined 30, close to 3,900 level. Darsha says, what about DXY? We actually looked at that very early in the webinar. So those recordings will be up later. And you can take a look at that. But yeah, my thinking is that Ethereum is, after this tag and hold, we'll be looking for a move back here to 3,900, and then we'll make a decision, right? This is kind of the example of decision points in trading, right? This was a decision point. Once we reacted and reversed here, we were bulls, or at least not bearish anymore. And so, yeah, so I'd be looking back towards that level. If I go to a shorter term chart, let's go to an hourly. I mean, it's pretty clear where your support is going to be here, right? In fact, you've got a nice little 5-wave move to the upside here, right? Little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you pull back, which we would expect, then you're looking at 32 or 100 or so support, right? And then looking to take it higher after a pullback. So let me actually check something out right here. This is a good spot for a pullback, and here's why. So this is 2022 VWAP, okay? We just tagged it. So again, pullback, look for support near 3,200 in Ethereum. That's where my head's at. All right, let's check out Bitcoin while we're at it. Okay, Bitcoin. So this channel on here goes all the way back to like 2014, 15. You can see the thick black center line. That's where I'd watch for resistance now. Frankly, just because it was support, especially towards the end of 2021. Support on that crash, day, which was a weekend, I think. It was support towards the end of the month, and we broke down. So yeah, I'd look back towards that level and then, try to make a decision. Which is going to be like 47,500. So, I don't have answers for you in terms of like, where we're going to go into a raging bull or a raging bear market. Probably going to just, some back and forth. I mean, we've been sideways for, a long time here. And don't forget, you do have the possibility of a head and shoulders top here, right? Shoulder, head, shoulder. It's possible that we just churn and make a big right shoulder for a while. There's a lot of possibilities. From a levels perspective, look, you bounce from support. That's support. September low. Resistance probably up here at 47.5. That's all. Okay, let's look at gold. Okay, so gold, shift fork back here. I am looking at resistance possibly up near 1850. But based on kind of the channel that we've got here from this August low, it's also a shift fork. Looking towards that 19. Excuse me, I need a drink of coffee. Ooh. I'm looking towards that 1920s area. Okay, in gold. And frankly, we dipped today to 1815. I mean, I kind of think that's support, really, right? So, Adarsha asking more about DXY. Sure. Okay, so we did talk about DXY earlier, but let's just go back to it real quick. So we're testing support literally right now. But if you do, get a bounce, then you probably want to see resistance or need to see resistance at 95.50. Okay. 95.50 would be your resistance. It's just those lows over here. That's all. Okay. And again, if we did break down, we're looking at two levels, 94.50, but 93.40.50 is the bigger level probably over the next month. But again, we're at support now, so we haven't broken this yet. So hold your horses. Okay, let's go to S&Ps real fast. All right, so again, the long-term chart for S&Ps, lest we forget, every time we've come off of this channel line that goes back like 12 years, we have had a pullback to this parallel here, right? At least. So this is the first time we've pressed it against this level since 2014, believe it or not. So with that, unless we're going to go through here and go for a full-on blowout, I lean towards the downside. And let's take a look at the shorter term chart. So here's a 4-hour chart. We held that trend line from October, right? We have a center line, a median line, which we reversed off of as well. But we've come into a level here that, frankly, you could get a lower high. You've got an impulse down. You've got, I think, about 2 equal legs to the upside from this low. Pretty much. I mean, 47.54 would be that level. What did we print this morning? 47.51, right? You got this old high here. You got these former lows here. Let's call it up to 47.60 or something like that. So I'd be very careful here. I mean, we've had a rally. We've had, what's this percentage rally we've had from the low, which was what? It's on Monday. Okay, we've had a 3.5, north of 3.5% rally in like 3 days. More like 2 days actually. So I think that you kind of have to be leaning towards, resistance up here and being wary of this level up here. Okay, even if you're got a hair up your ass, maybe positioning for a bigger downside with some cheaper puts, considering that VIX has come all the way back to a 17 handle. All right, so that's what I'm thinking for S&Ps. Okay, we had a question here on Aussie Swiss. I will look at it. I will admit too that I probably have not looked at Aussie Swiss in many moons. I don't know here about Aussie Swiss. It frankly looks a lot like Aussie dollar, as it should, because Swiss is pretty muted. I'm not sure if I'm going to have much of an opinion on Aussie Swiss for you. Only thing I can think of here is if we can get a decent channel from this high, low, and high. Okay, so that's a fork. Doesn't stick out a whole lot for me. That's a channel. Not a whole lot doing there either. I will say this. The 200-day average in Aussie Swiss is pretty appears pretty useful over the last couple of years. So that is going to be up near this level. So I would say that 68 is a darn big level for Aussie Swiss. That's not to say that we're going to 68. However, it's one of those levels that sticks out. Like, you know, like a kind of a magnet, looks like a magnet, if you will. Now, other than that, I have no desire to do anything right here. I mean, in fact, you are at your own, we are at a resistance level now. I mean, look at that low acting as resistance here essentially since mid-December. So you are pressing a level, but if you break above this spot, might be a quick trip up to 68, and that's where I would actually be thinking resistance for Aussie Swiss. So that's the best I can do there. Just for fun, let's see what these other cryptos look like. Okay, so this is Cardano. And we broke a big trend line in Cardano. This might actually help offer general clues on the crypto space in general, because this is pretty clean. You can see the trend line back from March of 2020. Excuse me. That is very clean. You can see we held it over December, traded around it. But yeah, I'd be looking at basically that along with that December 27th high is resistance now at 159.25. Okay, so that's an interesting it's an interesting chart to look at. Solana held 200-day average. What a beaut. I suppose you could pay attention to this level right here at 162.9. Seems a little shallow in terms of, you know, the Cardano resistance as well as Bitcoin and Ethereum for that matter. So, yeah. Price Surfer, I'm sorry, says, if you do altcoins, can you take a look at AVAX USDT? I will look. The only I've kind of restricted. Well, first in my trading, I've restricted myself to trading kind of the bigger market cap coins here, the ones that we've just looked at, and frankly, mostly Ethereum at this point is what I've been trading. But I will. Excuse me. I will look this up. AVAX USDT. It's a pretty healthy looking chart, you would say, right? I mean, frankly, look, held that, right? So former resistance, we held that. And really, that's kind of all you need on this chart. Healthy RSI. Yeah, I mean, this looks good. This is a nice looking chart. So I see no reason to be anything other than constructive on this chart. Okay, you might have some temporary, you might have some resistance at 114 and at 114.5, but other than that, this looks pretty good. Okay, that, my friends, is it for today. So again, thank you for taking time out of your day for this FX Power Hour. Again, I'm Jamie Saettele with Scandinavian Capital Markets and sbtradedesk.com. So if you would like actual, trade ideas and whatnot, check it out. But yeah, have a great rest of your week, and I hope 2022 is off to a good start for you. All righty, I'll talk to you next week. Bye.